Hello peeps, how are we doing? It's not supposed to be plugged in. I am here on my own because young Daniel is on vacation or holiday, as we say here in the United Kingdom. Welcome to VCQ, Viewers and Comments and Questions. Mick here. Hello, no Dan. So if you want to turn off, now's the time. For those of you who are new, we do this every Monday. There's usually another person here, Daniel, but he is now not here for reasons just alluded. Pause. Let's pause that. Just make sure everything's all happening. Looks like it's all happening. Greetings, says Wes Chilton. Amos Trivedi. Hi from Newark, DE. Is that Delaware, Newark, Delaware, or is that somewhere in DE Deutschland? Steve Kellett, good morning from Malaysia, just. Blimey, that's a trip, Steve. Cheers from Seattle, somebody said. Hello from Finland, says Yiki Imonen. Hello from Chesapeake, Virginia. I've been across the Chesapeake Bridge, for what it's worth. I'm sure you have too. Johnny Love says, after deciding to really focus on not buying any more guitars, I bought 2 guitars. Just saying, and they're killer. I sort of know how that feels, Johnny. Yeah, hello everyone. Hello, Robert Payne. Hello, Robert. Nice to hear from you. He says, good evening, everyone. Hello from Baltimore, says Leadhead. On the streets of Baltimore. Graham Parsons, was that? BV Ninja, thank you kindly, as always, for moderating, flying the TPS flag, being in the TPS Facebook group, and just generally being awesome. We massively appreciate that, BV. I'm just looking at my audio meters, wondering if I'm a little bit quiet today. I guess you'll tell me if I am. Am I quiet? I can have some more gain if I am. Gareth Valark, howdy from Kent, WA, Washington State, maybe. It's good. Learn a bit about the US states doing this. Jim Krajic says, a day off finally. Cup of coffee and Mick and Dan and some spring weather in Baltimore. Sadly, no Dan. Jim, but all of those other things are present and correct. Wojciech Handker, and I'm really sorry if I pronounce your name wrong there. Wojciech, maybe. Or Wojciech, apologies, don't know how to pronounce the Polish. He says, greetings from Poland. I'm about to get a Belly Puck Deluxe as my first delay. I got a great deal on it. What are your thoughts on it? Our thoughts are yes. There you go. It's a flipping great sounding thing. Loads of modes in it. Just awesome. Awesome as an always on too. Here's a tip for you. At a time that is fiscally appropriate, get yourself an expression pedal, plug it in and use it to control the delay level, and just have it on all the time and just control the delay level up and down with the expression pedal, and you'll have a lot of fun doing that. Malibu, California's in the house, says someone who I've just lost. Says Nicholas Ditola. Hello, Nicholas. Airfire. Ed. Hello, mate. He says, would you be recommend the... Or, no, sorry. Shall I just slow down? Let's have some tea. Hello, Ed. Tea. Ed says, can you remind me of the book on motivated reasoning you talked about a while ago? Yes, I can. It's called it's by Julia Galef, and it is called The Scout Mindset. Julia Galef, which I think is Julia, as you would imagine, in Galef, Galef, and the book is called The Scout Mindset. I can't believe I remembered that. Justin Garcia. Hey, fellas. Hey, Justin. Fella. Good. Detroit. Matt Wilcox is in from Detroit. Albuquerque, New Mexico in the house. It's sunny and warm today. Good on you. Nice. Great. Sunny Nova Scotia for once, says Todd Roy. Good. Well, I'm assuming you can hear me okay because no one says you can't. So, groovy. You're fine. Your sound level is fine over here in Norway, says Thor from Guitars and Gizmos. Thank you, Thor. Thanks for that feedback. Appreciate it. Right. Gordon Rankin's on. Hello, Gordon. He says, Dan talked me into getting a Page last week when he was using it with my nitrous treble booster. I got it on Friday and started playing. Hours later, my wife asked if I was coming home. Yeah. There's a bit more Kingsley love on this coming Friday's show, where we have a mess about with the Mesa 5050 power amp and a mid-80s 212 EV loaded Boogie cab that I managed to pick up. And there's some interesting Kingsley stuff in there too, so hope you enjoy that, Gordon. Right, I think we should get into it. We may not run the full 2 hours tonight. I'm on my own, you know. It's hard, man. We'll see how we get on. Frankie Holt's got rain. Sorry to hear that, Frankie. Right, let's get into these Super Chat questions then. I will keep an eye on how many are coming in, just so I don't get overwhelmed. I have been messing about with the studio, actually, which I could show you in a minute. Yeah, anyone who messes about with the studio will know how laborious and long it becomes, and when you get one end of a cable that isn't the other end of the cable that you think it is, etc. Right, I will just gain myself up a little bit, I think. We're trying to go completely analog in the front anyway, and it's been it's a challenge. Right, first up today is Ranzer. Ran, always great to hear from you. No question, he says, shelf terminations. Nice. Wonderful show on Friday, thank you. Yeah, we did, what was it? What did we do? It was, I can't even remember. It was one where we did on tuning is what it was. And Dan said he really wanted to talk about tuning again. And I'm like, no, we've done a show on tuners. And he said, no, not tuners, tuning. And at that point I was like, okay, yeah, that could be super interesting. And I was really surprised, actually. Surprised how many views it got over the weekend, and also surprised at the number of comments of people saying how much they really enjoyed it and how many light bulbs it kind of turned on for people. So, yeah, thank you, Ran. And we do have a question from Ran who says, what about a show on out there gear? Out there, man. Like the Mood, Mercury 7, but using it in a musical way. Not only for creating in that sort of, slightly off the wall way, but in a more traditional kind of way. How would you make that work in music that maybe is more familiar? I think that's a great idea. Dan's really into the new Chase Bliss. I forget what it's called, but the new one they've just brought out. But he's also been playing with the Mood a lot. So I suspect some inspiration from Dan would be a great way to do a show. Thank you, Ran. SWiz871, or indeed Swizz871, says, hey gents, I got a Strymon Deco and a Bubbletron that both have flange options. What am I missing out on if I don't own a straight up flanger like the Camouflage or the Mistress? Okay, you'll have to bear with me here. What I can tell you about flangers is Dan is mad about them. And he likes them in the analog world. Something to do with the way the filtering occurs and the way the EQ is sort of let to be free, especially in the in his old electric Mistress. The high end in it is really spectacular. It's beautiful. It's not like sharp and spiky. It's just got plenty of latitude to run and run and run. And I think that's more problematic in a digital environment. So for straight unbridled vintage style Mistress flanging, then you've really got to have that. And Dan has consistently said he's never really found one that he likes as much, apart from the Thorpe Camouflage. Push comes to shove, he's always going to use the Mistress, but it has some other things that aren't really great about it in terms of usability and all of that, and it's a bit temperamental, so the Camouflages works great. So aside from that sort of general analog loveliness, I guess it's then down to the controls you've got on it. So the extent of what type of flange it does, because there's so many different types of flange. If you think about things like through zero, the jet plane type flangers, that kind of stuff, Matrix doesn't really do that. The electro harmonics, and it might be that some of those other things that you're mentioning do those kind of things. So I think it really depends on the kind of flange you want. And when Dan's back, maybe he could add a bit more about that. As far as I'm aware, and forgive my ignorance on this, the Deco is more of a tape flange thing. And the tape flange is really not the same as an out-and-out flanger, you know, like a jet plane flanger or the through zero thing I was just talking about, or indeed a Mistress. So I think that's a different... it's been ages since I played one, so again, excuse my ignorance, but I think the Deco is more about that subtle tape flanging than it is the kind of... that you get with a full-on flanger. Whit Anderson. Hello, Whit. He says, greetings from Hopewell, New Jersey. I've been playing for 40 years, and during Friday's show, I dropped my coffee and ran to confirm that the harmonic at the 7th fret was the same as the 19th. Shazam. Much love, Whit. Yeah, I was surprised by that. I think I even said I didn't know that was the case. So, we were talking about harmonics. And so if we play the harmonic at the 7th fret, hopefully you can hear that. And at the 19th, which is up here somewhere, don't go up there very much. Exactly the same, look at that. Who knew? I didn't know that. I think Dan had really done his homework for Friday's show. Especially that out of tune major third thing was bonkers. Thank you, Whit. Square Wave Symphonies. Blimey, generosity abounds today. Thank you so much for that. He says, greetings, feet o' fuzz. I was reminded why I normally play endlessly forever headroom amps. Had to use a 500 watt hybrid instead of my wet dry Ampeg SVT. It was a Mesa based strategy, and the amp couldn't handle the fuzz flanger thunderstorm I threw at it. Interesting. So you're saying, even though it's 500 watts, the Mesa bass... Oh no, hang on. Oh, I see. You've got the Ampeg and the Mesa. Oh my God. And instead, you've got to use something a little more modern with less headroom, and it just couldn't handle it. Yeah, I guess so. It's an interesting one, headroom, you know. Because unless you spend a lot of time in that world, or you haven't felt it, it's very hard to understand the difference between headroom and volume. Because I think one always assumes that big headroom means big volume, and they do go hand in hand to a certain extent. But of course you can be loud without having huge amounts of headroom. And I think the bigness of the sound, you know, just the amount of latitude you have within your guitar tone is what headroom is really all about. And as you say, being able to hear the full extent of those frequencies, having the overdrive where you want it, and having nothing crap out through the chain. I was reminded of it when we plugged in Devin Townsend's famous... I don't know what the name of it was. I did know. I had to Google it on Friday when I was doing this Hagen bag. But as soon as we plugged it in, whatever those pickups are, Fishman Fluence Actives, I think they are, just crapped everything out in the signal chain. Like everything had to be rethought about in order to handle what was coming out of those pickups. Dan was so surprised by it, he took it back to the gig rig and they plugged it in, and he said it was some silly number of volts compared to what it normally would be. So clearly that has ramifications all the way down the chain. That's just a really small example of how changing one thing in your chain can change the headroom characteristics of everything. So, yeah. Dan Neumann, or indeed Dan Newman, or Neumann. Dan, you've super chatted, and I believe I've started making old man noises. Anyone else started making old man noises while bending down or getting in and out of cars? Man. Bit more volume. Let's have a tiny bit more volume. Okay, Dan Neumann says, "Hello Mick, from Sequim, I guess is how you pronounce it, Washington. Could you tell us please what pickups are installed in your Gold Leicester? Thanks for the always entertaining and valuable content you provide." Thank you, Dan. So this Les Paul, which is now mine, I finally persuaded dear Neville to sell it to me. It's a 2017, I think, Tom Murphy aged True Historic. Top of the tree as far as Gibson's concerned, and I'm blissfully happy with it. It has, as far as I'm aware, Gibson custom buckers. Just the standard ones that came with it. So yeah, they sound great. Well, the guitar sounds great. It's a magic sounding thing. Yeah, Gibson custom buckers, whatever they put in them in 2017. Interestingly enough, I've just taken delivery of some Lola low wind Imperials, seeing as we're on the subject of pickups and Neville. Neville said, if you don't know who Nev is, Nev was the editor on Guitarist when I started work there in 1997. And we've been great friends all the way through that. And he recently came in and we put a pedal board together for him, did a gig with him just recently. Anyway, he said he wanted to change the pickups in his 335. Now, he has a 63 reissue Memphis 335, so like the red, basically the Clapton guitar. Clapton's was the 64 anyway, but block inlays, the more pointier ears, nylon saddles. And he wanted some low wind Imperials to put in there. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I've been thinking of doing the same thing. Why don't we order 2 sets? We'll order a set each and we'll do it together, make a video, and we'll discuss the before and after. So pickup change videos. This should be hilarious because there's 2 ES335s to do. SWiz871, me again. Sorry, don't be sorry. He says, I have 3 guitars, a few mics and plenty of pedals, thanks to you guys. All I can think about most days is buying a drum kit. More mics and preamps to record a homemade album. Yeah, Dan and I were talking about this the other day. For reasons that will become increasingly apparent, I wake up every day thinking about Strats. It's absolutely true. I wake up every day thinking about Strats. And when I'm not thinking about Strats, I was thinking about redoing the flipping studio. I was thinking about analog summing. I was thinking about a really nice compressor limiter to put on the output bus. And that's just the way it goes. And I think there comes a time where it's healthy to just do some of these things rather than think about them. Which is obviously where it gets financially troublesome. But yeah, you're totally not alone. There is also some sense to be had in going, you know what, rather than buy a drum kit and all the stuff, you might be as well to find a friend who's got some of that stuff already, or make friends with someone who's got a project studio and ease yourself in a bit. Because one danger is, and I've done this at least twice in the past, is you get all the gear, you become slightly overwhelmed with what's happening, and then you fail to make any music, and that's a real shame if you end up doing that. But I guess that's what gear acquisition syndrome is all about. And again, Swizz871, he says, it's a dream of mine, and it also feels very expensive and like gas, turned up to 200%. Any wise words or advice? Hopefully I've just offered some. I hope Dan would agree. I'm just going to have a quick check to see where we are with the old chats to Super, just to make sure I shan't be overwhelmed. Excuse me. I think we're doing all right. Doing all right for a few minutes. And there you go. It's not exactly dead air, but it's the equivalent almost thereof. Mark Lavinish. Hello, Mark. Always good to hear from you. Mark says, can you attempt to quantify the difference in your effect and tone knowledge between the time before TPS, BTPS, and now, which I guess would be a TPS? Curious how much you've grown. Although no, it would be DTPS, wouldn't it, during TPS? Dan and I again talk about this quite a lot. We've both learned an amazing amount, actually. So let's see. I started work on guitar magazines in 1997, and I worked on guitar magazines pretty much all the way through that time until we started TPS in 2015. And I continued to work for guitar magazines. So I always say I worked for guitar magazines for 20 years or thereabouts. And in that, over those 20 years, you meet a really staggering array of people, from artists to guitar builders to amp designers to effects designers to, you kind of meet everybody, or at least you have the opportunity to meet people. And the amount of information you pick up there is staggering. It's all a bit, in some ways it's kind of secondhand info, because someone can show you how to build an acoustic guitar, but until you do it yourself, you don't really know. And I've never built an acoustic guitar. I think with stuff like effects and amps and things like that, you can know a lot of this stuff by reading forums or being told or talking to designers or whatever. But really, until you spend day in, day out, week in, week out with stuff, especially old stuff like old amps cranked, until you do a lot of that, is very, very hard to really understand. And what TPS has given us both the opportunity to do is do more of that more often. So on a sort of on an intellectual level, the amount of learning has been vertical for me, and even Dan says that as well, actually. But the experiential learning has also been vertical. It's a bit of a privilege, isn't it? We get to ask a question, a really narrow, nerdy question that in everyday life is not that easy to ask and answer, and we can spend all day trying to sort it out. So yeah, and to quantify it then, before I started on guitar magazines, I learned this amount, which 0 is here. And before I started on guitar magazines, I'd learned this. By the time I left guitar magazines, I knew this, I think. And now I know this off the top of the screen. And hopefully by the time I take my last breath, I will be somewhere closer to the moon, to put some scale on that, because it never ends. And the amount of stuff to learn experientially is colossal. I would say I'm much more interested in learning the experiential stuff at this point than technical stuff. Having done a lot of that, I kind of have realised it doesn't really mean anything unless you've got 105 dB going in your right ear. But yeah. Anyway, we continue to learn, Mark, and I think that's one of the reasons why we still love making shows so much, because even though it might not be new to you, some of the stuff we find out, it's going to be new to somebody, and to share that and to go along the journey, hopefully we all just learn a bit more and we can all learn off one another, and I like that. Great question, thank you. Jeffrey Raddick, on the subject of tuning. Jeffrey says, often when I'm tuning a string, I will pluck the string and the tuner's reading will start out of tune, drift above or below, or not settle down. The age of the string doesn't seem to matter. Yeah, Jeffrey, what you're getting here is just a varying oscillation. So I'll see if I can demonstrate this on a guitar with a relatively high action. This is well, it was Ainsley Lister's 70 Strat. More information on that coming soon. This has got pretty high action, this guitar, and if I play the note, you'll be able to hear it go all over the place. Actually, it's not that audible. What normally happens when you hit it quite hard, the string is vibrating and oscillating over a bigger area than it would normally, so it's going in and out of tune because it's stretching and coming back, right? So I guess for tuning you need to find an optimum pressure in which to do that. The other issue might be it's not getting a clear enough either fundamental or harmonic, and it is being confused by something else like a distortion pedal or modulation, or your delay pedal might be on. I know that sounds like impossibly simplistic to suggest, but it could be the case. So what you need is a clean signal, a strong clean signal, and a fairly consistent level of pluckage, technical term there. Yeah, there you go. Stone Free by Jimi Hendrix. 12th fret, E and D harmonics. God, it's good hearing it. Taylor Rook. Hello, Taylor. He says, hi, both. You just have to imagine Dan's here. He's here in spirit, obviously. In fact, I think he's going to Rick Stein's in Padstow tonight. If you're in Padstow and you want to go and see Dan, go there. Sorry, Dan. Thanks for the continued inspiration on my guitar journey. I've just pulled the trigger, says Taylor, on a 1959 ES125T, which arrives tomorrow. What an impossibly cool guitar that is. I'm just going to check that I am thinking about the same guitar that you're talking about. I do get a bit confused. Yeah. So Simon, who works with us sometimes, he has such a guitar. I think his is 54. It's just a magic thing. And you look at that neck P90 there and you think, well, that's going to sound all dull and thuddy, isn't it? Look at it. It's a flipping acoustic guitar. It's got a P90 at the neck. It's going to sound dull and thuddy. Not a bit of it. It's a magic sounding thing. Really, really cool. Good on you. Yeah, nice. Really cool. Sam Webster. Maybe a cue for Dan's tastes, but any love for the late Sean Lane? I've been really digging his melody writing, solid state rig and all. Yeah, I've subbed a few articles on Sean over the years, and I know people that are completely besotted with his catalogue and all that. I'm sure Dan would be more into it than I am on a musical level. I don't know if he's ever dug into Sean that much, but yeah, give that a go. I mean, Sean's reputation goes long before anything we could say. So nice. I'll have a listen. Emilio White. Hello, Emilio. He says, hello guys. Have you ever tried the G-Lab wah pad? It's a true bypass pressure plate for your wah to take the pedal out of the signal path, similar to a switcher. Seems like a great idea. G-Lab wah plate. I'm going to turn the super chats off. I think that's probably BV telling me it's time to turn the super chats off. Yeah, thank you, BV. So if you've super chatted up to this point, we'll answer. I will answer. If you haven't, please don't, because it'll take the rest of the show to get through them. So super chats are going off now. If you've super chatted to this point, you will be answered. Turn off. There we go. Right, G-Lab wah plate. Oh, I see. So it's just a loop switcher. Yeah, nice. A true bypass thing to put it on. Yeah, I mean you could do that in a number of ways, but yeah, depends what wah you've got. So some of the old wahs, some of the vintage wahs especially, had pretty horrific bypass states. Meaning that if it's in your signal chain but turned off, it can be a real cause of tone suck. I think for ages and ages and ages, the standard Crybaby didn't have a good bypass. And again, I don't know about the modern ones. They definitely fixed it at one point there. and because there are about 95,000 different crybabies, I think the very least expensive one didn't have a great bypass. Next one up from that was better. So yeah, cool. Yeah, why do they call it touch? True bypass. Touch wah pad. You might have to explain to me why it's called touch. As far as I can see, you just stick your wire on it, it becomes a true bypass loop, and that's that. Anyway, could be wrong. Someone will come in a minute. Love that wah pad compared with my crybaby. Hayden Van Sil wants to know, how do the pickups compare to the 61 Strat? My 1960 has very weak pickups, so I'm wondering if the custom shop does, or if that's or whether they're just regular pickups. Of all the Strats I've got here at the moment, my custom shop Strat came as standard with custom shop hand wound Texas specials. I've said this before, but I think there's a sort of virtual curve that goes early Strats, discount maple neck Strats for a second. We're just talking about the 59 change to the rosewood type Strats. Lovely plummy, soft, full, airy highs, you know, insert adjectives here. By the mid-60s, they were a bit aggressive and a bit more mid-bite and harsher trebles. By the end of the 60s, that had sort of tailed off again. Now, I know that that is a massive generalisation. What the observation I've made about my 62 Relic Strat is that it's off the top of that curve. So it's more aggressive and it's louder and it's more brutal than, terrible word to use, brighter and more present and stronger and more strident in the mids than quite a few of the mid-60s Strats I played. And that's not personally to my tastes. The 61 that is also here at the moment, this one, this is a 61 Strat. These pickups are perfect for me, absolutely perfect. So that's what I want. These pickups in the 70, so this is an interesting guitar, right? 70 4-bolt, truss rod in the right place. No, sorry, it does not have a bullet truss rod, should I say. 4-bolt neck, lightweight alder body. I mean, it's essentially a mid-60s Strat, but for a poly finished neck, because it's had a nitro body refin. These are the grey bottom pickups that they sort of introduced 64, 65-ish. And then they changed a bit towards the end of the 60s and into the 70s. These pickups sound flipping magic. And these pickups are what this, to me, is what the pickups in my custom shop Gold Strat should sound like. Now, these are not the Texas Specials. These are currently Klopman 60s. But this guitar, to me, for that sort of later 60s sound, is what I think a plain enamel pickup kind of should sound like. They just sound magic. It's that, you know, we could get into generalizations, but we are talking about Robin Trowell, we are talking about Jimi Hendrix, we are talking about, you know, Ritchie Blackmore for that matter, but, you know, maybe he's a bit later and a different approach. And everything that I wanted this guitar to be, this guitar has. So there will be a video on all of the above because I have access to these guitars now, so yeah. So back to your question about, are the, you know, pickups weak? I think that's a very requires a lot of qualification, that question, because what's weak to you is maybe not weak to somebody else. Refer you back to the Devin Townsend guitar we had on the show on Friday. Compared to that, they're very, very weak, but that guitar is entirely unusable for me personally. Might be right up your street. So I think you've got to decide where your happy place is and what the rest of your signal chain needs. One thing I've certainly discovered is that for the kind of music I play and the sort of dynamic range that I like and the volume I play at, almost the weaker the pickup, the better. Almost. Not quite, but yeah. And then what does weak actually mean? Because if you're looking at low DC resistance as your measure of the pickup output, it's not the case. You know, Red, Dan's custom shop Telly, has a weak bridge pickup, 7.2K I think it measures at. It's the loudest guitar we have. Go figure. I've never understood it. I don't understand it. No doubt Gordon Rankin will be in the comments explaining exactly why. So yeah, I hope that answers that question. Where are we now then? Sorry, I just have to scroll down and find out where we were. We had Emilio White. Yeah, we did. Mike 2203 fan. Hello, Mike. He says, do you ever use transmitters, wireless transmitters, rather than leads, or do you avoid them? Are there any good ones? I have an old Trantec one, which is okay-ish. Cheers. We don't use them, Mike. We don't use them primarily because of the buffer involved. In order to get that sound out your guitar and end it up at a receiver somewhere, the receiver's always buffered, and that is not... I find it doesn't... It changes the relationship of the volume knob and all of that to your first pedal. So plenty of people do use wireless, obviously. Very famously, Angus Young, and of course his wireless had that the buffer and the preamp in the Solo Dallas thing, which, or no, not Solo Dallas. Solo Dallas is the remake. But Angus's Young wireless was a really important part of his sound. So, you know, there's no good or bad, it's just what you're used to. There was a huge change in wireless many years ago now, where they went from VHF and UHF to digital. So I think, again, you might want to do some reading on that. I don't fully understand it. I certainly preferred the sound of all the digital ones to any of the UHF or VHF ones I tried. They often come with, if you look at the Line 6 relay or the Boss Do one, I think, they've usually got a little switch on which simulates cable length, because the other thing about having a wireless and a buffer is that it just stays bright because it's buffered. So you can knock off some of that high end and simulate the effect of capacitance affecting high end loss in a longer cable. What else to say? I think it's true to say that Brian May puts his treble booster on his strap, and he goes from the guitar to the treble booster into the wireless transmitter, in order that that relationship that I was just talking about between volume knob and first pedal is not broken. So it comes out of the treble booster into the wireless and off. So clearly, you know, you've got guitar gods down the ages using wireless, so they clearly can't be that bad. I'm not sure you'd ever hear anybody using one in the studio. I don't know, maybe Angus did. Interesting. Nice to hear from you, Mike. Hope 335's working out. Chris Groom. Hey, Chris. And once again, Chris, thank you for your incredible generosity. Blimey O'Reilly. He says, hi, Mick. Hi, Dan. Great show on tuning. Oh yeah, Chris is making the point. It's worth noting that all members of the band should tune with the same tuner, which helps until everyone really knows what they're doing. Yeah, I think Dan has said that on the show a couple of times. He bought his whole band those, the ones that he likes, the Sonic Research ones, and he encouraged everyone else in his band to use those as well. So it's a good point. It shouldn't really you know, a modern tuner should be pretty accurate when it says it's in tune. But what's interesting is the degree of variance. I think we proved that in the show where we had 5 tuners on the board and they were all reading something slightly different. So bang on, absolutely happy in tune. It shouldn't matter, but actually you don't always have time to quite get there. So it's, yeah, using the same one would make sense, I guess. Wastel 10. Hi gents, my uncle's brass band once had to tune up guitars and keys nearly 2 half steps due to detuning of horns in low temperature outside. Okay, blimey. So I think what Wastel 10 is saying, outdoors horns lose a bit of pitch, is that right? They go flatter? Or sharper indeed? Because of low temperatures, I suppose. Yeah, maybe the temperature has an effect on the metal or the... Hopefully someone's explaining that in the comments section. Francesco Canzi says, hey Mick, how about digital pedal boards like Helix? No, Francesco, not for me, thank you. Loads of people love them and get on with them really well. I'd rather play bass or drums or just sing or play acoustic, truth be told. Billy Gibbons hides his wireless in a tobacco can on his strap, says Chris Chapman. Good on you. Good on you, Billy. I'm just seeing if anyone's coming in on that last thing. Farid Hussaini says, do I prefer your Jimi Hendrix Fuzz Face or the Analog Man BC108? I can set the Analog Man BC108 up to sound almost identical, but there's just something about that particular Jimmy BC108 fuzz that I love. The big blue one. I flipping love it. It works especially well with that old Strat as well. There's something about the volume control on that guitar that's just like happy days, as it should be. Right, thank you. Robert Payne. This is what I was looking for. Stephen Ryan says, that makes sense. Metals expand and contract in extreme temperatures. Yep, thanks, Stephen. And Robert Payne says, the contraction of the horn's metal will shorten the column of air going through it. He reckons. Yeah, that sounds logical. That's good. I'm glad we're on the same logic page. Adam Collier says, how's your gold Strat going? It's going great, Adam. I really bonded with it in the weeks after I got it. In a big way. However, I now own 2 gold Strats. This 1971. And my custom shop one. You'll notice one of them's in E flat. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I prefer it to my old blue, sorry blue, by some margin. The neck is great. Tell you what is weird, I think I said this in the video on Friday. I spent the first few weeks not being able to play it in tune, and then all of a sudden I could play it in tune, and I don't... It doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's now I can play it sonorously and I'm happy with it. So yeah, thank you for asking. Christian Hanley says, Mick, when are you going to get the Scott McKeon Octave Fuzz on a board during the show? I picked one up after your jam show and it's glorious. Would love to hear your thoughts on it. Yeah, I guess we used it in that jam show, Christian. And I like it a lot. My preferred way of doing it is to have a separate octave. So I really like the Mythos Argo, which is a take on the old Prescription Electronics Cobb. And just for the specific type of octave fuzz sounds that I like, I personally prefer that. But I think for the Jimmy type thing, the Scott McKeon one is really exceptionally good. I think both me and Dan got some good sounds out of it that day. So congrats on that. Congrats on that. Right. Bruce W. Hello, Bruce. He says, I just got a new compensated wraparound bridge on my Les Paul Special to help with intonation, but it made the guitar brighter. Would changing the capacitor value help bring down that brightness? Yeah, it certainly can. Pot value could make a difference too. I guess the danger is, this is one of those things where sometimes we'll talk about capacitance as an example, and we'll say you lose a load of high end, and somebody says, yeah, but isn't that what the treble control's for on your amp? It's like, it is and it isn't, because, you know, let's say the capacitance on a 40-foot cable is affecting this bunch of frequencies, but actually your treble control on your amp is centered here. So it's not the same thing at all, in fact. They may have crossover and they may do similar jobs, and that's the issue with your bridge. It might be that it will change it, it will make it less bright, but is it doing it in the place that you want it to do? Our dear friend Joey Landreth, Honk, he's gone through the mill with bridges, because I think still he finds one that he loves the sound of, but it won't intonate. He finds one that intonates, but he doesn't like the sound of it. And I won't be alone in telling you that is the problem of those bridges. I know Paul Smith did a huge amount of work trying to get one that sounded good and intonated. It's something to do with the material they're made out of and all that. So yeah, if everything's wide open, the tone cap shouldn't make that much difference. But one mod that Dan likes to do to his Tellys, for example, is to detach the tone pot from the neck pickup. And even though the pot's there not doing anything because it's wide open, actually it's still loading. That's why you get no load tone pots. And even just the act of detaching it compared to it being on 10 is quite a staggering difference. So yeah, that the cap might make a difference, but the pot too, well, the pot and the cap, I guess the combination of all of it. So what's the guitar? Les Paul Special. So you've probably got 500k pots. You could try some 300k pots. That might make a difference. Capacitor wise, the bigger the value, the more high end it will roll off. So that could help too. Just trying to think what else you could do. You could go for a different nut material, but yeah, I bet the stud material. Oh no, yeah, the stud material will make a difference. I would hit up some forums and try and collate some useful answers among the people yelling at each other, metaphorically speaking. So interesting, that. So interesting. And, you know, in complete contradiction with a lot of internet folklore, which says the only thing in the guitar that makes any difference is the pickup. You know, there's no way the hardware can make any difference. Well, you're here telling us that you've heard it straight away. So, yeah. Yep. Try it. It's easy enough to change the cap. Good place to start. And then maybe try some 300k pots. That might help too. I see everything twice. There's a deja vu joke to be made there, but anyway. Hello from New Hampshire. Hello to New Hampshire. I just wanted to share my newfound enthusiasm for valves. I recently got a Blues Deluxe after years of using modelers. I feel like a kid who just discovered chocolate. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I'm not saying anything. You know where Dan and I stand on that. Nice. Isaac Morris. Hello, Isaac. He says, hello, Lonesome Mick. Yeah, I suppose I am, really. The Cali Tweed can get wonderfully bright without ever feeling harsh to my ear. Would you attribute that to the Blackbird speaker? I've just remembered I've totally forgotten to record the flipping podcast. I'm going to start recording. And a rather belated welcome to our podcast listeners. We put the podcast out to patrons on Patreon. You join us halfway through because once again I forgot to press record. So many apologies. I think this probably would be a good time to do some housekeeping as well. I've got a list of things that Catherine has given me. Right, so Mesa Cali Tweed, the California Tweed amplifier that they make, lovely thing. There's one back there somewhere. So it can get lovely and bright, but it doesn't sound harsh. Is that down to the speaker? It's going to be everything, Isaac, I think. One thing about Tweed amps, or at least what we think of traditionally in the Tweed idiom, is that they tend to be a bit more gained, and they have less negative feedback. Usually, tend to be a bit more mid-pushed, and there's just a bit more gain running through the whole, front end and the EQ section and all that. And I think what that does is that it enables those trebles to be slightly overdriven, even though it sounds clean. And that is a great way of reducing the harshness in high frequency, is to just not have them so brutally clean. So that might be part of it. The speaker's likely to be part of it. Output tubes, just the way the thing's EQ'd and set up. Yeah, it's probably one factor of many that makes that the case. Great amp, really, really great amp. Happy Monday from Akron, Ohio. Again, for the podcast listeners, it's just me here. Dan is on vacation, / holiday, whatever you want to call it. Therefore, it is just me. Sorry about that. He says, Jim B says, I have a 1970 Ampeg GU12. I'll be pairing the Ampeg with a recent Vox AC15. How would you decide which amp to run wet? Jim, what Dan and I would usually start by doing is the amp that's got the higher headroom, so the one that's either overdriving less, or when you switch on an overdrive pedal, what you'll find is, let's say you set your amp levels like this, and they're the same. Usually in an amp, when you step on an overdrive pedal, one will go up that much and one will go up that much, or one will go up that much and one will go up that much. The one that goes up more is the one that's got more headroom. And if what you want out of your delays and reverbs and your wet effects in general is clarity, then run your wet stuff into the higher headroom amp, because what that will do is it will give you the widest frequency response for your wet effects, so it sounds all nice and lovely. However, if what you want is for it all to get a bit more mushy and chewy and all crush into one another on the wet side, while your dry side gets much louder, then do it the other way around. And why would that be useful? Well, for example, sometimes if you're running delay and reverb into a very high headroom amplifier, you hit the front of that with an overdrive pedal, and not only does it all get louder, but the delay and reverb gets massively louder because it's being hit with more signal, and the amp's got enough headroom to make everything really loud, and all of a sudden your delays and reverbs can sound really out of control. Well, if actually what's happening, you're smashing those into an amp that's overdriving a lot, that effect will be lessened than if you do it into a high headroom amp. Now, the downside is that it won't be as clear sounding. You won't get that lovely sort of pristine clarity and stuff off the wet effects. But if you don't want that, and lots of people don't, put it into the lower headroom amp. So I guess the elevator pitch is try it both ways and see which you like the best. But we would start with the wet effects in the higher headroom amp. Enjoy. Albus Band, Aaron, hello. Always great to hear from you. And as I'd hoped, a Spinal Tap quote. I've been working with this now for half an hour. I can't figure it out. How about a challenge? Oh no, we're not in Nigel Tufnell mode anymore. I don't want miniature bread. He says, how about a challenge where you pick 3 pedals that start with your initials? Love you, and I hope to see you at NAMM. I don't think we're going to be going to NAMM. For a number of reasons. Partly, I've got a feeling I've got a gig that weekend. And partly because we've got Andy Timmons dates at the end of the month, and I don't want to do anything to jeopardise it again. On the subject of which, TPS Band with Andy Timmons. We're doing 3 dates. We're doing one in our hometown of Frome, and there's a new venue managed by the people at the Cheese and Grain, 100 capacity. Apparently it's a very nice new venue, but only 100 capacity. On the 23rd of June, we have some tickets left. I think we're just over half sold. So if you want to go, get in and please get some tickets now. And you do that by going to the Cheese and Grain website. You don't buy those tickets through us. You buy them from the Cheese and Grain. Cheese and Grain in Frome, 23rd of June. If you want tickets, get them now. Secondly, we're doing 2 days at Whitney in the middle of England there somewhere, or at least in the middle of South England there somewhere. Whitney in Oxfordshire, all the hang tickets have sold. We were going to do a hang on the Sunday afternoon. They've all gone, but there's still tickets to the gigs left. Again, I think we're almost 2/3 sold there. So if you want to go, please get in now. 25th of June, the Saturday, and the Sunday, the 26th of June, That Pedal Show Band with Andy Timmons. Thatpedalshowstore.com. Click on event tickets to find out more. Who the hell's phoning me now then? Hello? I'm all right, Amy. Everybody, this is Amy from Virgin Wine who's calling me. I'm actually doing a live stream at the moment, Amy. Great. Could you call me back some other time? Thanks for your help. Nice people at Virgin Wine. Yes, That Pedal Show Store event tickets to find out more. Good. While we're doing housekeeping, patrons. There is a signed Joe Bonamassa fuzz face that is being given away to active current patrons. It closes tomorrow, Tuesday, the 12th of April at midnight GMT. So if you haven't already entered and you do have the email, there is a small window to get in to enter that. You will have got the email if you were a current patron on the day the giveaway went live. If you became a patron after that, you go into next month's. So there you go. I need a producer. I don't think we'll see you at NAMM, Aaron. Really sorry about that. Anyway, 3 pedals with your initials. So my initials are M for Michael, A for Alexander, and T for Taylor, Matt. Dan's are Des, D-E-S, D for Dan, E for Edmund, and S for Steinhardt. So I'm going to pick on behalf of Dan. Right, M. Oh, this is really hard. It's going to have to be an overdrive pedal or a fuzz. This is way too hard, man. It's like one of those high stress situations. Yeah, I can't do it. That's amazing. I can't do that. Because obviously we'd have Memory Man for M in... but then that doesn't work. You've got us, Aaron. I can't compute that with having to do the production as well. I'm going to come back to it. Is shiny are you, kid? Says, what PRS would you get to complement a Telly and Les Paul through a Victory Sheriff 22? Well, you could go in a number of directions. So your Telly's doing the Telly thing. You don't say which Les Paul it is, but I'm just going to assume it's a humbucker Les Paul. So what you don't have is any P90s. So you could get a PRS with some P90s. Or you could have a look at the funkier ones like the Starler and the Mirror, if they still do that. I'm a bit behind with what PRS do these days. Would be very cool. Some of their soap bar models I think are really great, again, if they still do them. maybe even a semi-hollow. I think they still do a SE level semi-hollow, so that'd be fairly affordable, or a full-on hollow body. I think they're loads of money. And you've got single cut. I'm assuming your Telly and your Leicester don't have vibrato bridges, so why don't you go with a double cut? Why don't you go with a double cut with a vibrato bridge? Now, this is a bit pricey, but this is my favourite PRS guitar. DGT, which is hopelessly out of tune. Interestingly enough, see that sticker on the back of the tuning peg there? That was from the Birmingham Guitar Show in March 2020, just as COVID was breaking. And Dan and I did a thing on the live stage there, and they stuck a sticker on the guitar to say, he's brought this guitar in, it's okay for him to take it back out again, and I've never taken it off. Well, good news, Dan and I are doing the Birmingham Guitar Show once again, I think, on the 8th of May. Ainsley Lister's going to be doing a set there, and I think we're doing Sunday afternoon. We're both doing Sunday afternoon, so go if you want to go to the Birmingham Guitar Show. Dan and I will be doing something on the live stage. Anyway, yeah, back to your PRS question. Seeing as you've got two single cut guitars with fixed bridges, why don't you go for a double cut with a trem? Of which there are many. In the PRS line. SE, most affordable. S2 is their kind of more affordable American-made guitars, and I think it's called Core Line, full fat American guitars, and then private stock. Whoa. I like the S2s. Good. What's going on in the regular chat then? Let's have a look. Dynacomp El Capistan Skylar Reverb from GFI, says David Rustad for Dan. DES. I think that's a pretty good shout. Dynacomp especially, I know he would love. He's all, yeah. David Burke. C24 is a good shout. Little cheaper. Some bolt-on tonality to vary a bit more from the LP. I didn't even know they were doing CE24s again. That was always when I first got into PRS guitars when I was about 16, I guess. That was the guitar. I had a CE22, the classic electric bolt-on. Yeah, I didn't even realise they'd started doing those again. How cool. Tom says, what about a Silver Sky? Yeah, of course, I always forget the Silver Sky's a PRS guitar. So you could have a Stratocaster style guitar. I see John Mayer's lighting up the forums, having played a Strat on stage. David Pekarski says, a PRS NF3. There you go, David. That shows my utter ignorance. I don't even know what the NF3 is. I guess one of my issues with PRS was always, for so long, all the body shapes were exactly the same, but the guitars were totally different, and I just got so confused. NF3. Oh, I see. Oh, that is cool. So it's kind of Silver Sky-y, but with narrow field pickups. Narrow field pickups is Paul's thinner humbucker. That's a good shout, actually. NF3, yeah, check out the NF3. That looks really good. Another one of my favourite PRS guitars ever was the Swamp Ash Special, which had two humbuckers and a single coil. That was a killer guitar. David Tompkins, hello David. He says, have you ever had to deal with tendinitis? I've currently got it in my left hand, probably due to computer keyboard rather than guitar, but it doesn't help with playing. Yeah, I very luckily have never had tendinitis, despite spending hours every day playing sat at a computer. You just need to find a good physio and do what they say, I think, because, that's pretty serious, and that can be an ongoing problem that can be with you for your whole life. So find a great physio and do what they say, I would suggest. Obviously, in your computing life, you'll need to change something. So the angle at which you sit, your relative wrist height, depending on where you are with the keyboard and all of that. So you need to change something there. Standing desks actually can be quite good for that sort of thing. When you come back to guitar, one thing you can do is vary your playing position. I think, if you're learning or if you play at home, the temptation is to sit in one position and be doing that. Stand up, try standing up and move around a bit. It may help some. In all of these things, what you're trying to do, it's, tendinitis is, I guess, in part caused by RSI, or at least the two things are linked or can be linked. And what is RSI? It's a repetitive strain, so you need to stop the repetition. Actually, I had Achilles tendinitis not that long ago. That was flipping awful. I had to do physio for that and it worked. So there is hope. There is hope. We wish you well with that, David. Kyle Harkus. Hello, Kyle. Kyle bought the Supersonic 100. Good on you, mate. He says, I'm loving the cleans and versatility. Any love for the broadcast Ariel Posen by Hudson? I won one from Ariel and I really, really like what it does. Yeah, I mean, all the broadcasts are brilliant. I can't exactly remember what the AP one does that's different from the regular one. I guess a bit revoiced. I certainly remember when Ariel came in here and played it, it sounded pretty amazing. So, yeah, nice score. Nice score. And congratulations on that Supersonic. Paul Matulovic. I don't understand the question, Paul. He says, ever played anything with a Stratocaster? Ever played anything with a Stratocaster? I've played everything with a Stratocaster. Maybe ever played anything something. Maybe we've missed a word there. Anything non-blues with a Stratocaster? Yes. Maybe we can get some qualification on that. What are your thoughts on Jerry Garcia and his tone? Just not for me. I never got into it, which is not to say it's not brilliant and loads of people don't love them, because they're clearly one of the best bands ever in the whole world of all bands. But yeah, not for me. Doesn't resonate with me personally. I don't quite know why. Just not enough time spent is probably the answer. Dan's not a fan either, to be fair. Maybe when we see you, Paul, for the experience day, maybe you can educate us. Always up for a bit of education. Dan Carhart, or Carhart. Dan Carhart. No question. Just wanted to thank Mick for shouting the truth about Vintage Amps podcast that led me down a path recently and ended in a 78 champ. And it sounds glorious. Yeah, it's really great. If you've never listened to it, Skip Simmons and Jason Verlind, who is the publisher and editor of Fretboard Journal magazine. Skip Simmons is an amp tech. And they do a podcast called The Truth About Vintage Amps, and it is flipping brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It's not all about vintage amps. It's quite often about food and craft brew and some other things. Good on you, Dan. Good on you. Congratulations on that amp. Pearly says, how would you compare or contrast the sound and feel of a Fender Blues Junior versus a Pro Junior? Good question. Okay, they're both about 15 watts. The Blues Junior is a slightly bigger box and has a 12-inch speaker. The Pro Junior is a slightly smaller box and has a 10-inch speaker. Pro Junior's got two controls, volume and tone. Blues Junior's got a bunch of controls, volume, treble, mid, bass, reverb, master, and a fat switch. Don't think I've missed anything. So straight off the bat, the Blues Junior sounds a bit bigger and more expansive and slightly more bass because it's a bigger box and it's got a bigger speaker. The bigger speaker doesn't necessarily create the bass, but the bigger box definitely does. So if you like low end response, you probably prefer the Blues Junior. Then it gets a bit more chewy because I've found, personally speaking, I usually prefer the Pro Junior, because I find that if you do what you should do on all amps and stick everything at 2 o'clock, it just sounds open and alive and quite big and not constrained, whereas I struggle with the Blues Junior to get a sound that isn't a bit brittle. When you crank it, maybe less so, but I find the EQ a bit chewier. Yeah, I think I prefer the Pro. I think I prefer the Pro Junior, especially through a bigger cab, through a 210 Celestion Alnico Golds, or even through a 412 for that matter. I prefer the simplicity of it, I think, which is not to say you can't get a Blues Junior to sound great. They've sold flipping millions of them and they are much loved by lots of people. I think there's more. So one of the more useful things to say is the Pro Junior is a non-master volume amp, so it has volume and tone. Therefore, if you want it to overdrive in a certain way, you've got to crank it up. The Blues Junior is a master volume amp, so you can push that front end plus the fat switch and have overdriven tones at a lower volume, so that might be of use to you. Blues Junior's got reverb, Pro Junior doesn't, I think, because I've just said it's got 2 controls, so it can't have reverb. Please tell me it doesn't have reverb. Yeah, no reverb. Yeah, so you might say that the Blues Junior is considerably more versatile because you can get the overdrive tones at lower volumes, and it's got the reverb, and it's got the bigger speaker. It's much more the all-rounder. However, there is something about the visceral nature and the simplicity of the Pro Junior that I personally prefer, especially into a bigger cab. Would be a good video to do that, actually, because I rather suspect that's a pretty common question, and all the things I'm remembering out of my brain may well be proven to be different once you get them in a room and cranked next to one another. We're making that video. Thank you. Sam Foyer, or Foyer, Sam from Canada, he says, what are your suggestions for Strat pickups for rock and blues? Here's the thing. I was just having a little think through all my favourite rock and blues tones of all time ever from Strats, and I think they're all original pickups. Pretty much. Old guitars with original pickups. We can say that, you know, after the fact. So Yngwie now uses his DiMarzio whatevers, doesn't he? Yngwie Malmsteen. But in his heyday, I don't think he did. Or should I say, on Rising Force, I don't think he did. Blackmore the same. Just thinking on the rock thing. Jimmy, is there another blues rock guitar player who has ever lived who's more important than Jimi Hendrix? Original mid-late 60s pickups. Stevie Ray Vaughan, blues guitar player, original 59 pickups, were they? Or maybe early 60s pickups. Robert Cray. Yeah. So I'm going to say whatever is closest to the original spec pickups you can get. However, let's move along. They're not always that easy to deal with because they usually require playing pretty loud and all of that. So you might want to go for something with a little more punch. But for me personally, it's whatever is closest to those original designs. I'm trying to think of a blues rock tone out of a Strat that I like more than any that didn't use original pickups. or something very much approximating original pickups. Good luck, Sam. Sean Gerolimatos. Hello, Sean. He says, I got Casey Musgrave's new album because of Mick. Enjoying it thoroughly. Mick, have you heard of Caitlin Canty? I think you've got to be careful how you say that. I think you'd love her. Thanks for everything. I have listened to a bit of Caitlin, yes, Sean. One great thing about Apple Music is when you start listening to someone in a genre, it suggests other people in that genre. I shall go back and listen again. If you haven't listened to Casey Musgraves, please do. Hand on heart, I thought Golden Hour was a better record than the very most recent one. But, you know, we're all different. We're all different. Tom Davis. Hello, Tom. Hello from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. No question. I've been healing from a liver transplant. Oh, my God. And you guys have been bringing me some joy while I heal. Tom, a liver transplant. Wow. Holy flipping moly. Wow, that's a big deal. Well, we wish you the speediest of healthy recoveries, mate. And that convalescence goes as expected. Did you say congratulations to someone who's had a transplant? I guess so. That must be a lucky thing. Good on you, mate. Well done. We wish you all the best. Blimey. Ross Philpott says, Mick, what does the Michael Landau Strat have? That's Simon Neil's choice guitar, I believe. Yes, I'm pleased you mentioned Michael Landau. It's very hard to say who your favourite guitar player is, because I have a handful, but Michael Landau is without doubt among my favourite guitar players ever. He has two signature Strats. Interesting story. One is based on his 63 Fiesta Red 63, which I have played. I've actually played Michael's 63 Strat. And every single one of those custom shop guitars I've played is banging. Every single one I've played has been banging. I've probably played maybe 7 or 8 of them. I think they've got maybe fat 60s or fat 50s. Interestingly enough, the other signature Michael Landau Strat is a 68 with a big headstock, because I think he's got a 68 and a 69 original guitar. One of them's got a humbucker in, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, in the production Fender Custom Shop 68 Landau Strat, I think they are Fender Fat 50s pickups in that guitar, and they are the reason. That guitar, there's a friend of ours called Will Goodfellow, and Will watches the show, met him a few times over the years at various shows and stuff. Will has the most spectacular Landau Strat. That guitar alone totally changed my opinion of big headstock Strats, because like a lot of people, I was a bit sniffy about them, largely through a lack of knowledge and a great deal of ignorance. Having played that, it changed my view on them, and I was looking one for ages and ages and ages, couldn't find one at a price that made any sense, and it's kind of how I ended up with this. It's in E flat at the moment. It sounds absolutely gigantic. Belonged to Ainsley Lister. And when Ainsley came in and we made a video, I was like, man, I really love that guitar. And he ended up buying a couple more maple neck ones. And he needed to shift it. He said, that gold Strat's for sale if you're interested. I'm like, ah! So we came to some agreeable terms. So it's Michael Landau's fault I've got that guitar. That's basically where that story was going. And I think they're fat 50s in that one, and they might be fat 60s in the 63 version. Yes. Just seeing if anyone's come in on that. Neil Pike says, Mick, what's your favourite Taylor Swift track? Ooh, that's a tough one because there are so many. I really like the Red album a great deal, actually. Trouble is just a fantastic song. 22 is, I mean, it's perfect pop. Shake It Off is beyond perfect pop. But I think actually my favourite Tay-Tay track might be Style off 1989. I think. Push Comes to Shove. There are just too many. Just utterly fantastic songs. Cranar Siku Guitar says, I might or might not be getting a custom Fiesta Red Strat soon. Very excited to say the least. Well, Cranar, if you watch the episode we did with Nev's pedalboard build a few weeks back, you will have seen his... That was a made-to-measure... I don't know if they call it made-to-measure in Fender world, but it was a custom order, custom shop Strat in Fiesta. Everything about it is absolutely right. It is such a lovely guitar. Good on you. Travis Richardson, have you tried throwback humbuckers? I prefer them over my Lola Imperial low winds, which are excellent as well. More clarity and dynamics. I haven't, and I'm going to be absolutely truthful with you, Travis. This is the absolute truth. I could not use a product which has a spelling mistake in it. Throwback, T-H-R-O-B-A-K. I just can't do it. Now, it might be that I've got other products that have got spelling mistakes in, but I'm like, surely you have respect enough for your own business to spell things properly. That said, is Stonebender is unbelievable. I have played a lot of Collins guitars down the years, and I liked them in those too, but push comes to shove, I think I've played more guitars with Imperials in than I have throwbacks, and every Imperial guitar I've heard I've liked. I also like, yeah. So it's not much of a reason, but it's a reason. Trouble is with pickups. Coming up in a few weeks' time will be another Strat vlog where I'm basically just pulling my hair out about pickups, going, man, this rabbit hole, it's just gone on too long, and I can't even be sure that one set of this pickups is going to be the same as the next set. You know, are the pickups going to be as different as guitars can be different? And if so, it's like, I can identify what it is about the 335 I want to change very simply, and that is it's a bit dull sounding, and I don't have the variance in the volume and tone controls that, for example, the Leicester's got, or indeed I get out of my Casino having replaced the electronics. So what I want to achieve is definable, and I'm pretty sure the Lolas will deliver that with a new pot and cap set. At that point, it might very well be that the throwbacks are kind of, 5% better or 10% better or whatever. But I think once you've made that big leap and you've repaired the problem, then it's play the guitar, learn the pickups, and adjust everything else accordingly. So that's my general point on having done so much of it now on kind of boutique pickups, is the jump from ordinary pickups and dodgy, no, that's not fair. The jump from ordinary pickups and ordinary pots and caps and modern wiring to really nice pickups, really nice pots and caps, and 50s wiring, all those three things together, that jump is, for me anyway, colossal. Then once you're up there, the differences are much smaller, I think. Maybe. Anyway, Bev. Thank you, Bev. BV says, yes, custom shop Fat 50s in both of the Landau signature guitars. Custom shop Fat 50s in both of the Landau signature guitars. So they're kind of, fairly vintagey spec, with a little bit of extra wind, I would imagine. That Strat is a great acoustic guitar, says Eagle Ray Rob. It really is. Tuned to E flat, massive action, 5 springs. It resonates. It resonates so much. Buzz Crumbhugger says Stratocaster wasn't even a real word until it was coined. So how is throwback any different? Well, It's not about whether the word's real, it's whether it's spelt correctly. Stratocaster is spelt correctly because it was the first thing to be called that. Throwback should be spelt THROWBACK. Throwback, not, anyway, there we are. Sammy Watt says, hey Mick, you made my Monday. What would your thoughts be on amp sims and standalone sims like Neural DSP or Positive Grid? Sammy, I am literally the last person on earth to ask about stuff like that. I don't use it enough to know to give a useful answer. What I know is that I live in a world where I can put a mic on a speaker, I can have it analog all the way until it hits the computer. And to me, anyway, for the style of music I play and for the way I like to play and all the rest of that, I find that infinitely more satisfying artistically, sonically, to be the way that I want to do it. Secondly, it's quicker. I can do it like that. Whereas all that other stuff, I'd have to spend 2 years learning it, and 48 years old, 2 years is a long time at this point. So, yeah. Strat and Trichorus for the win, says Kira Barsmith. Get on. Any thoughts on the new Dualist 2022, says Peckish ATX. Is it worth the upgrade? Don't know. Alan White says, I've just changed all my Strats to 5 springs and it's really great. Yeah. It is great. Yeah, cool. Dominic Frontera says, any thoughts on running dual mono? Yes, Dominic, we do it all the time. We call it wet dry, but it's actually dual mono. So you've got 2 amps, not panned left and right. That's essentially what dual mono is. And then you can either send everything to both of those amps, which is great, because what you get is the sort of some of the parts of the 2 amps being more than the 2 amps themselves, or you can decide just to send like one of your modulation effects to only one of the amps. Still dual mono. We call it wet dry. It's actually dual mono. We do it all the time, and we are massive fans, especially when those are the 2 amps. Acoustic Rocker says, Mick, can you say about the difference between potted and non-potted humbuckers and suggest a sub £300 set, £300 set for an Epiphone Les Paul to sound like Bonamassa? Okay, I'm definitely not an expert on this. Potted, right, what does that mean? It means the pickup is made and it is dipped into a hot wax of some sort in order to squeeze out any of the air, and what that does is it means that it is less susceptible to microphonic feedback. And there's a number of ways you can do it. You can either do it like that, dip the whole thing, or you can do the individual coils. And the extent to which you do it, it's not either fully potted or fully unpotted. The extent to which and the particular type of wax that you use, or compound or whatever you want to call it, obviously will have an effect. And I think some of the different pickup makers have different approaches to the sorts of stuff that they use and how much, and whether it's just the coils or whether it's the whole pickup. So a fully unpotted humbucker is going to sound, this is a generalization, lighter area and more microphonic. You may well get higher treble response. A fully potted humbucker is going to be the opposite of those things. What the fully potted humbucker gives you is feedback resistance at higher volumes. I'm guessing, given that Mr. Bonamassa likes his bursts, and he owns many of them, if you do a bit of research on however Gibson was or was not potting its humbuckers in the late 1950s from 58 to 60, that will give you your answer. Now, lots of the manufacturers whether it's Seymour Duncan or Bare Knuckle or whoever it might be, will talk about how fully or lightly potted their pickups are. I think I'm right in saying that when Gibson first did the Burst Bucker, over the years Gibson has always made a PAF style pickup. For years and years and years it was a 57 Classics, and they were pretty heavily potted, coils wound the same, PAF style pickup. When they moved to the Burst Buckers, I think they potted them, either didn't pot them or they potted them much less, and started to do things like slightly asymmetrically wound coils, which gave it a slightly more open, for want of a better word, quackier kind of sound. Probably worth doing some reading actually on that. And I would guess, doesn't Bonamassa have a set with Seymour Duncan? I thought Bonamassa had a set with Seymour Duncan, in which case buy those if they're within budget. Failing that, you're in the UK, check out the Creamery, check out Bare Knuckle Pickups, and there's one other brand that I'm struggling for at the moment, but certainly Bare Knuckle and the Creamery. Monty's Guitars, check out, that's who I was looking for, Monty's Guitars, and read the descriptions, and I would buy from any of those brands with full confidence. Yeah, there you go. Dan put some really nice PAF styles in his jazz guitar just recently. I would think they would be a good shout. Yeah, I hope that helps, and I hope I didn't get anything too wrong. Let's see. BV says throwback is a copyright issue. Apparently, correctly spelled pickups already existed at the time they came to market, so he spelt it as throwback to trademark them. What a great story. Thanks, BV, for the mine of information as always. Yeah, good luck, Acoustic Rocker. Yeah, check out Monty's PAF style, and also check out the Bonamassa set. I'm sure he's got a signature set with Seymour Duncan. Eric Berntson, who is sorting out his own OCD experiences. Now, Eric, I don't know if you are actually OCD or whether it's a turn of phrase. I use the turn of phrase OCD sometimes to describe my slightly pernickety nature about things. And somebody pulled me up on it and said, if you know anyone with OCD properly, you wouldn't use the term. And I had to kind of apologise, because it is a very destructive condition to have. So whether you have or you haven't, let's make that clear. Moving on. If you've got to go with fingerboard radius or larger frets, which kills the vintage vibe for you first? Radius. I quite like bigger frets, so I'm not bothered about bigger frets, but radius, yeah. It's so weird, you know. I pick up a Strat and it's got a really flat board. I'm like, nah, I don't like this. Pick up a Les Paul, it's got a 12-inch radius fingerboard, or a 335. It's, you know. So I don't fully understand that, why that would be a problem, but it is. Yeah. More so, polyfinish, overly heavy, modern pickups that sound scratchy and harsh and too high output. Thin strings, low action. The other things I can handle. David Rogel. I have a roller bridge, well lubricated contact points, vigorously preset strings, and I still can't do a single bend without the string going very flat. What else might I be doing wrong? You don't say what guitar it is, David. If it's a Bigsby, it could be the spring. The spring is really, really important on Bigsby's, so just give that a look. If it's a more less farmyard machinery type vibrato, such as I'm trying to think what's got a roller bridge on it. Did G&L do roller bridges? Tone Pros do one. There's a Tune-o-matic one. Yeah. Right. Is it a fixed bridge? Is it a non-vibrato guitar? If it's a non-vibrato guitar, somewhere that string is getting caught, and I'm going to say it's most likely to be the nut. So you're bending a string, it's going flat and it's not returning to pitch. On a non-vibrato guitar, that can pretty much only be the nut or the tuner or the string tree. So we've been through all that. If it's a vibrato guitar, it's just bending down and it's not coming back up again. Often the case on all vibrato, well, certainly on all my vibrato guitars, if I do a load of playing, usually just straight string bending doesn't make a difference, but if it's a light touch vibrato like a Wilkinson or a 2-point Fender one, because there's not that much tension in them, they don't have that much tension to pull them back. So it might be you just need to flick it, and certainly Floyd players will know this, and two-point vibrato players will probably know this. You play a bit and it's not quite right, you just flick it back and it'll seep back. Those are the only things I can think about. And just because it's lubricated doesn't mean, like for the nut, for example, it might be well lubricated, but it might have burrs all over it. So you can lubricate it as much as you want, but if it's not cut properly, it's still going to cause a problem. So, yeah, God, that's frustrating. That's frustrating. Controversial point warning. I've usually found that anything that says that it improves tuning stability usually makes it worse. Like locking tuners and stuff, I just can't deal with it. Give me a vintage style Strat, Telly or Les Paul or 335 and I can make the thing play in tune. Stick any modern stuff on there, I'm lost. Good luck. Good luck. Is anyone else coming up with any better suggestions than my old man? Burnt Gerbil says, my wife's name is also Catherine. Good call. Yeah, it wasn't a selection criteria, but yeah. Justice, Mick, any opinion on the Nash brand S-style guitars? Yeah, I met Bill once. I had dinner with him. Met him a couple of times actually. He's a super interesting guy. Yeah, I mean, he knows about stuff, and he makes really brilliant guitars. So, not really. James, suggestion: rebrand the pedal show as That Pensioners Show and turn the set into an English pub. Talk more, pedal less. I think those days we're not far away from that. I don't think. Chris says, can you ask Mick to thank Catherine for the great service in packing my hoodies and beanies so well? We'll do that, Chris. We'll pass that on. Also to Hayden as well, who works in the TPS pedal show store, packing and sending stuff out. So yeah, they do a really great job. Just seeing if anyone's got. Crane RCQ guitar says it's almost always the nut. I mean, that's my inclination. Try bending the string behind the nut. If it goes sharp and it doesn't come back, then you need to give some attention to the nut. Yeah, that's really good. String Down Infinity. I love a Floyd. I don't understand the hate. Been playing them for years. Just got a Charvel Model 3A that I'm restoring. They can take a bit of time, but they're worth the effort if you like them. Yeah, totally. They're I mean, clearly there are enough guitar players down the years that prove a Floyd Rose bridge is a pretty awesome thing. My problem is, because I'm quite heavy, I always rest my hand on the bridge, and if I do that, the guitar's out of tune. So that's one of the reasons they don't work for me. But yeah, it requires a different playing style, which then that results in a different sound and tonality, and all of which is good. All of which is good. Rob Symington says, any chance we can see the Hughes and Kettner Pure Tone on the show? I heard a few demos and it sounds mega, very loud though. Yeah, we should get it on again. It's such a great amp. It's absolutely unbridled. It's just a great thing. It's a really great thing. Sometimes we use it in the wet dry scenario. On its own, it's a bit brutal in the way that the Plexi is a bit brutal. Yeah, I don't think they make it anymore. Hughes and Kettner Pure Tone. It's basically a Marshall, but nice, very, very simple, nothing in it. Loud as pigs, aggressive. Happy days. Tom Jawstrigg says, thanks, Mick, for doing this VCQ. No worries, Tom. It's my pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. Good. David Burke. Hello, David. He says, Mick, I thought I'd send a message in solidarity for your isolation. By the way, I recently got an R7, that's a Gibson 57 style Les Paul, in limited opaque blue finish. I also have a Candy Apple Red R7. I now have red and blue in LP form. Well, that's nice to, because you would assume that most 57 Les Pauls are certainly in standard form are either gold, or if they're customs, they'd be black. That's really cool, with different colours. Nice. Candy apple on a Les Paul. Wow. That's banging. That's banging. Nice one, David. Eagle Ray Rob. If you were looking for a companion to the 2-Rock Classic Reverb Signature, would you consider another 2-Rock for wet, dry, or stereo, etc.? I totally would, but cash, man. That would be a rig. Yeah, I'd look at a TS1 personally. Would be my choice to go with that. You've got a bit of a gain thing going on there, so you'd have to balance that up. The other one is the Silver Sterling Signature. My friend Jake Loosemore brought one up a few weeks back, and we plugged him in, and it's just a magic thing. But there's plenty of other amps that aren't in that price bracket that I think you could have just as much fun with. And it's just really about what takes your fancy. But yeah, 2-Rocks. Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want that, Rob? Daniel Westerlund. Hello, Daniel. Thanks for the inspiration, and cheers from Finland. Cheers to Finland. Lee Tintle. My father is retired, says Lee, and is auctioning his fun investment collection. Mostly Fender Gibson electrics, old as 1963, Martin Gibson acoustics, and 1968 Fender amps. Info to follow in the chat and description. Cool. Nice one, Lee. Anthony DeVito says, I asked about getting a T-style guitar a while back. I finally got one. Prototype version of the Reverend Pete Anderson signature T-style. It's amazing. Just wanted to say thank you. Cheers. Yeah, nice. I think Reverend makes some really, really, really killer guitars, as if we didn't have Gregory Cockery to remind us of that. Gregory Cockery. Oh, I think that might be us, actually, for Super Chats. I do believe that is us for Super Chats. Wow, that never happens. It's because Dan's not here, right? Nino Avini says, it's simple. We're biased to think Strat fretboards are round and Les Paul ones are flat. Yeah, biased is one word for it, and kind of used to it is another. Bias is such an interesting concept. Somebody, Ed Airfire, asked earlier about a book on motivated reasoning. I've become slightly fascinated with this. The story is too long to tell, but I've just got more interested in how we think and what we think and our biases, and some of it's down to trying to choose Strat pickups and all the biases we bring to that. Whether you use... So there are different kinds of bias, right? Let's say you have confirmation bias, or you have, well, you just Google bias and you'll come up with loads of different biases, and they enact in different ways. And when you say you're biased, it's usually a pejorative term. I like Strats and therefore I'm biased towards them, or I don't like digital amps very much, therefore I'm biased towards tube amps. Is it bias, or do I just prefer it? But then we get into motivated reasoning, and motivated reasoning is your sum total of everything that you've ingested, experience, different situations and all the rest of it. It gives you a framework in which to understand something. So politics would be the easiest example. So if you traditionally voted Republicrat, and your family has always been Republicrat and your state is Republicrat, and that's who you vote for. Notice I'm not saying Republican or Democrat because it doesn't matter which way around it is. If a Republican senator says something, you're more likely to believe them than if a Democrat senator says something. And that's what motivated reasoning is. It's a reason to agree with somebody's view based on your sort of moral, philosophical and ideological position on something. And when it comes to politics and when it comes to buying guitars, we're quite happy to call it that. We're quite happy to call it motivated reasoning or bias, and we think it's maybe not an ideal thing, and we should we should learn our way out of those biases and become these weird, rational, objective human beings, which the more I look at it, the more I don't think it exists. Where we're not worried so much about bias as if we're, a particular religious faith. If you marry somebody, are you biased towards your wife? Someone comes along and says, well, there's all these other wives over here and they're on paper, just as good. All you need to do is, just spend a bit more time with those other wives and you'll find that some of them could be way better than your wife. It's well, yeah, that's not really how it works, is it? So I'm just fascinated by the whole concept of bias, and by whether you like something or whether you're biased towards it, or whether it's learned behavior, or whether you're just, yeah. And it changes depending on the subject matter, where we think it's either a good thing or a bad thing. Are you biased towards your kids because they're your kids? You love your kids more than you love other kids. Well, you're just biased towards your kids, aren't you? So, yeah, I've been reading a lot about that. How did we get onto that? Because we're biased towards Strats and Tellys. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, Kurenu Siku Guitar says that's preference. Bias would be having some sort of gain from something, whether that would be financial gain, emotional gain, or everything in between. Yeah, I think that's what we assume with certain types of bias, isn't it? I don't know, you're paid to review a product, so you say it's good. I don't think that's bias. I think that's just dishonest. That's a different thing. Yeah, endlessly fascinating. Geometry of neck angles, says Dwayne Delario. Yeah, so radius board, and then of course how much back angle you've got on the neck. I guess that's all a big part of how it feels. Of course it is. Yeah, I guess we could talk about that for days. Anyway, the book that Ed asked about earlier was about trying to question some of those motivated understandings in situations where you're not sure. And the example the author uses is something called soldier mindset, where two people have an argument, they start fighting and they become defensive and attack, defend, and that's what most modern political arguments are certainly like, because you're defending this position. Julia Galef says, much better to be the scout, not the soldier. Just go out and look and see and observe. Don't fight. Massive, contentious subject. There we are. Fixed in cathode bias, says Philip Harris. Thank you, Philip. That's the comment I was looking for. It means we can move on. Good. Right. Uninterrupted Mick tangents. What a treat, says Sam Raymond. Bless you, Sam. That's very kind. Mark Schneeberger wants to know, what would you recommend as an analog delay? I currently use the Blue Crystal from Tone City. My favourite analog delay tonally is the Analog Man ARDX20 with a Mazio controller, because you get control over the modulation and some other stuff. The one thing I would want in addition is a tone control on the repeat, so you could decide whether it was brighter or less bright. I would think a good move up from the Tone City would be something like the MXR Carbon Copy Deluxe. I think that would be a great move. And then it gets a bit chewy because, for example, the Catlin Bred Belly Pot delay is not an analog delay in any way, shape or form. You know, its primary function is to sound like a tape, so not an analog, and it's digital. However, it does a flipping great job of a really nice analogy sounding delay. It does have some other modes in it. It's got a Memory Man mode and some other stuff. That would be well worth looking at. Boss DM2, you know, just for the straight up Bucket Brigade DM2 Wazza, if you can find one. No modulation, no, if you want that. What are they called? Clockwork delay by J-Rocket is exceptional. Exceptional. Quite a lot of money. And if you want to spend the most money, the Sir, whatever that's called, Discovery, that is utterly exceptional. That is absolutely exceptional. But it is loads and loads of money. There you go. There you go. Carbon Copy Deluxe. I think you could do a lot worse than that. Good. Right. Chris DeStefano wants to know any opinions on high-end Epiphone versus low-end Gibson. I would imagine they are, well, you can't, it's very difficult to generalise about whole brands. Suffice to say that I think the high-end Epiphones are probably spectacular guitars. Haven't actually played any of the newest ones, but no reason to think they wouldn't be really good guitars. Nick Harrington, have you had a go with the new D&M drive? It's just a different colour, isn't it? Or has he done a circuit tweak as well? I'd have to ask Nick. I do have one. Mike Doctor says, have you got the new RE2 yet? No, we're supposed to have, and the 202, but they are held in customs. In fact, a lot of stuff's been held in customs at the moment, which is annoying. Yeah, good. All right. I think that's probably us. Did you find out what the tailpiece, stud, bridge and post and thumb wheel materials are made of on Dan's Les Paul Junior? Les Paul and Junior. Les Paul is here, but his Junior isn't. And I don't know. The R8, which I'm pointing at, will be whatever they were using in the early 2000s. The 61 Les Paul Junior, SG-shaped Les Paul Junior, will be whatever they were using in 1961. Yeah. Yep. Paul Matulovic says, Mick looks like Keith from 5 Watt World, sat in the middle like that. Welcome to 500 Watt World is all I'm going to say about that. Are you still planning a guitar clear out, Mick? Says Mike2203. Yes, I am. Although I've got to be a bit careful about what I sell, because some of the stuff I've bought at advantageous prices over the years, so I just need to make sure that I'm not doing anything I shouldn't be doing. But yeah, I am, because there have been acquisitions. I'll tell that story some other day, but suffice to say, it's been a pretty crazy couple of weeks. with a bit of luck and a lot of brown trouser financial moments. Do you run your fuzzes at unity gain? Says ZB. I hear that fuzzes like to have their output dime to sound the best. Yeah, ZB. If you watch the video we did with Marcus Reeves a few weeks back, you'll see we built one fuzz up onto a board and we modded another, I think is how it went. The volume has a significant tonal effect. It was at sort of, I don't know, 3 o'clock and we were like, yeah, it sounds a bit dull. Get it round to 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and it's like, wow, all the top end has just come back. So it really does depend on the fuzz, depends on the design of the fuzz and what transistors it's using and all of that and how it's been biased. But yeah, the volume at which it's set can have a huge tonal impact, not just in terms of gain, but in terms of EQ and response. So yeah. Good. BV says, Robert has done some minor tweaks on the limited edition new D&M. Dan probably knows about that. Thank you, BV. Good. Good. Okay, I think we're there. I'll just double check. Circuit tweak. Yeah, I don't know what that is. There'll be an email somewhere. I've got 3,000 unread emails. Not a fan of email. Good. Paul Norman, did you buy the 61 Strat, Mick? I did. There's no easy way to say it. I did, yeah. I'll tell the story. Some things happened and it all came together. Has Dan sent a postcard yet? No, I did talk to him earlier, Hannah. And he's going to Rick Stein's for dinner. So he's a very lucky boy today. Oh yeah, David Burke. David, thank you so much for mentioning this. And Anwar, Awal as well. Diamond is to be resurrected. Diamond pedals. For those of you who don't know Diamond pedals just make spectacularly good pedals. And they had some trouble a little while ago and ceased trading. It looks like they will be back in some form. Don't know quite what yet, but that is really fantastic news. So yes. Nick, thank you for the congratulations. Justin says congrats. Thank you for saying congrats. Or if any, the truth be told, I'm a little bit, I sort of wasn't going to say anything about it because it can look really bad when you buy expensive things. Everyone thinks you're loaded or whatever, and it's just, I promise you it's not the case. Not that there's anything wrong with being loaded either, but and it looks a bit spawny, but the short story is I've waited 25 years to do this. The opportunity came and I grabbed it with both hands, and I'm going to be eating beans on toast for a few weeks and having to move a few things out. So, but sometimes you just got to jump, right? And I've jumped, but I will, once I've come down off the ledge and actually understood what has happened, I will make a video about it. So thank you for the congratulations, everyone. I'm, yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't even know what to say. Like I say, I've been waiting 25 years to do it. So, yeah. Matt W says, now that you've got your Les Paul and the Strat, does that check off the majority of your bucket list guitars? Well, it's interesting that, Matt. Kind of yes, actually. There's one more guitar that I think will happen not anytime soon. no time soon. It's an SG, and that'll round it out. You know, a couple of nice Strats, LP 335 and an SG. That's it. That's everything I've ever wanted from guitars. And it takes a while, right? You sometimes you've got the money, but you don't find the right guitar. Sometimes you find the right guitar, but you don't have the money. That's basically been the case for the last 20 years. And sometimes you find the right guitar and you haven't quite got the money, and that's what's just happened. So yeah, like I say, you got to jump off. But yeah, there's it's been a flipping journey. Anyway, I shouldn't say too much more about it, but thank you to everyone who's kind about that, because I appreciate sometimes people can be less kind about these things. Good. Thank you for being here. Sorry it's just me. Dan's having a lovely holiday with his family and he's really enjoying it. He needed a break and he's thoroughly enjoying it. So yeah, good. He'll be back next week. We'll be back on Friday when we're messing around with the Mesa Boogie 5050, some Kingsley preamps, and an old Mesa 212 EV loaded cab, just for a bit of wet dry fun to see what we can learn there. And that's it. So yeah, please visit that pedal show store if you haven't been there, that pedal shop in the US. And thanks to all our patrons, as always, and anyone and everyone who has spent time with us. We massively appreciate it. Right. There we are. Thank you. Normally I make Dan play out, don't I? Which clearly isn't going to happen. So what you need to do now is imagine Dan playing out. See you Friday. Thanks for being here. Cheers, folks. Bye. Bye. Do, 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 do.